In this video, we are going to look at installing the tool we will use for this web development course. And that tool is called Visual Studio Code. So you can go ahead and search that in your web browser. Go ahead and click one of the download links. I'm going to go to actually this one here just so I can show you kind of what it's going to look like in a second. So Visual Studio Code is what's called an IDE. That stands for Integrated Development Environment. Just a complicated way of saying like this is a tool that lets you write code. And you can kind of see a demo of some code being written in Visual Studio here. And so we are going to use this to start developing our websites. We're going to write code in Visual Studio. Now the reason I'm choosing this is because mainly it's free, so anyone can download this, and it's also pretty user-friendly. So it will kind of meet those two purposes. And let's go ahead and download and install it. So you can click download here. You'll see a link's going to pop up here. It might take a second to download. I have a few already downloaded, so I'm just going to use one of them. Once it's downloaded, you'll see a file here. You can go ahead and click open. And close out of the browser at this point and just follow the setup wizard. I'm going to click accept the license agreements. The destination location I'm just going to set as default. The select start menu folder, also the default name. Additional tasks, I will create a desktop icon, one that will show up here so I can quickly open up Visual Studio Code. And then click install. So I'm going to pause here while this installs. And after it installs, you will see this Launch Visual Studio Code button. Let's go ahead and click that. It's going to launch it as soon as it starts. And if you didn't get this window for some reason, you could always click your desktop icon or just search it down here. All right. Now, hopefully at this point you have some sort of welcome screen. If you don't, that's okay. We're going to close it anyway. And now we just see a kind of blank screen with our just kind of preparing to open a file here. So let's do a quick tour of Visual Studio Code. Up here on the top left, we have different options, and then we have some menu options over here. We're going to start by looking at this one, the Explorer. Go ahead and click that. It will open up a folder system right here. You can also hide it by clicking it again. And if you want to see it, click it again here, and it'll show up. So basically, each of these you can click and unclick to see each of the menus. This Explorer is similar to your File Explorer. It's going to show you different files and folders. We don't have one just yet, so let's go ahead and create one by clicking Open Folder. It's going to open up your File Explorer. I'm going to make a folder in my documents. You can put it wherever you'd like. I'd encourage you to put it somewhere where you remember. In Windows, I can right-click and do New Folder. I'm going to call this folder First Website Project. I'm going to have us avoid spaces in between the words. Sometimes that can cause problems in code. So I'm just going to capitalize each of these words and no spaces. Click Enter. And now we have our folder here. Once we have that, you'll see it show up down here. Let's click Select Folder. The page will reload, and then in our Explorer, our Visual Studio Explorer, we'll see First Website Project. Cool. So that's set up, and that is essentially the same thing as if you went into your documents and went in this folder here. So again, what we're seeing here is the same thing here. But we will work more with this when we're coding because there's a little bit more handy features we can use. I'm going to go ahead and have us create a few subfolders here. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Tutorials. So again, you can do new files and new folders here. And I'm just making a Tutorials folder here. I'll click Enter. And now that folder has been created. You'll notice too, it has been created in my File Explorer. So again, these both access the same location. I'm also going to click the new folder again and call this Test Website. So we'll have kind of tutorials where we explain concepts and a test website to kind of just start building out ourselves. I'll click enter, and now we have 2 folders. These folders live inside the first website project, but we might want folders within the tutorials folders. So let's just practice that. If you wanted to make a subfolder in the tutorials, you'd have to click and highlight this. If you don't click it, like say you're clicked out here, that means we're inside this folder. But we want to be inside the tutorials folder. So we'll click it, we'll do new folder. I'm just going to call this test1 and click enter. And Visual Studio Code does this weird thing where if you have just one folder inside it, it will do this like slash. If I right click and do a new folder and call it test2, you can see that we have 2 folders inside the tutorials. And we have this kind of branching structure. Tutorials has 2 folders in it. By clicking this arrow, I can hide and unhide them. And tutorials is in the first website project. So you can expand this, expand tutorials, and then we have these folders in here. If I was looking at the File Explorer, we could go first website project, tutorials, and then those 2 folders in here. Now we don't technically need both these folders, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete them. And you'll see them gone in here as well. And that's it for setting up the structure of our folder structure. In the next video, we'll actually look at developing some code that we can put inside these folders.